Okay, so you want to talk about a company that's practically uh, woven into the fabric of our lives,
Hmm.
right? You can't go a day without bumping into something Google-related.
Right.
Heck, I even Googled interesting facts about Google to prep for this deep dive.
Which is the perfect example of how ingrained they've become. Most of us use their products without a second thought.
It's true.
But how much do we really know about the company behind the search bar? You sent over a treasure trove of information on Google, mostly from their Wikipedia page.
And let me tell you, Wikipedia might not sound glamorous,
Right.
but trust me, this isn't your average dry encyclopedia entry.
No.
This is juicy stuff, the kind of details that make you see Google in a whole new light.
It's the story behind the tech giant we're after. The almost unbelievable rise, the decisions that could have gone sideways, and of course those eyebrow-raising details even seasoned Googlers might not know.
Exactly.
Right.
We're not here to tell you Google does searches that much, we all know.
Yeah.
We're digging deeper, starting with the name itself,
Okay.
Google. It's so ubiquitous now, but did they just pull it out of a hat?
Not exactly.
Okay.
It's actually a misspelling, believe it or not.
Right.
The intended word was Google.
Hold on, a misspelling. For a company obsessed with getting things right, that's pretty ironic, don't you think?
A happy accident, some might say. But there's a story there. You see, a Google is a 1 followed by 100 zeros.
Okay.
We're talking a huge E number.
Okay. Someone was feeling ambitious from day one, I see that. But what does a massive number have to do with search engines?
It's all about their ambition. From the very beginning, Google aimed to wrangle a seemingly infinite amount of information, making it accessible.
Right.
That name, even misspelled, reflects that almost audacious goal.
So it wasn't just about indexing the web, it was about capturing the sheer immensity of information out there.
Yes.
And to think, this all started as a Stanford research project back in 1996, right?
Humble beginnings, indeed.
Wow.
Their first office. A rented garage, proof that you don't need a fancy skyscraper to launch a tech revolution.
That's true.
But let's talk about a turning point that catapulted them from garage band to global phenomenon, their partnership with Yahoo in 2000.
Now that was a game changer.
It was.
Suddenly Google wasn't just one option among many.
Right.
They became the search engine for millions of Yahoo users.
Precisely. Think of the impact. Before that partnership, online advertising was a bit like the Wild West.
Is it true?
But by becoming Yahoo's default search engine, Google positioned themselves to rewrite the rules. They were now the gateway to the internet for a massive audience.
And they capitalized on that opportunity brilliantly. But it wasn't long before they made an even bolder move. Their IPO in 2004, I remember that. Shares were priced at a cool $85.
Which at the time seemed steep to some.
I bet.
But had you invested back then, well, let's just say you wouldn't be worried about inflation today.
Not at all.
That initial offering wasn't just about raising capital, though.
Right.
It solidified their status as a major player, a force to be reckoned with in the tech world.
From a garage to a global IPO in under a decade. That's a meteoric rise by any standard. But it wasn't all about profit, at least not initially.
Right.
That "don't be evil" mantra was a cornerstone of their early image, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Those early days were marked by a culture of innovation, a belief in pushing the boundaries of what was possible.
Right.
They even had goats mowing their lawns at one point.
Okay, you gotta tell me more about these goats.
Oh, yeah.
Were they fitted with tiny Google Maps backpacks?
Not quite. It was more about finding quirky, eco-friendly alternatives to traditional landscaping.
I see.
They were committed to doing things differently, right down to the lawn care.
Classic Google.
So,
It's like they were determined to be the unconventional underdog, even as they were becoming a tech powerhouse.
yeah.
And they certainly didn't stay confined to just search, did they?
No, they did not.
Pretty soon they were branching out in all directions: maps, email, even phones.
And that's where the real story of Google's growth emerges. It's not just about individual products, but about building an ecosystem.
Right.
They were creating a world where Google was no longer just something you use, it was something you lived in.
It's true. Think about it from the moment you wake up and check your Android phone to navigating traffic with Google Maps.
Yeah.
Their reach is extraordinary. But let's zoom in on one of their most transformative creations, Android itself.
Android.
Right.
Before it launched in 2008, the mobile phone landscape was a very different place. Remember those clunky interfaces, limited storage space?
Yeah.
And the feeling that your phone could only do a handful of things.
Oh, I remember it well. And then Android came along and blew the doors wide open.
It was a watershed moment
Yeah.
and a brilliant strategic move on Google's part. By making Android open source, they essentially gave phone manufacturers around the world the tools to build affordable, powerful smartphones.
It was a win-win for everyone, really.
Right.
Consumers got better phones, manufacturers could compete on a more level playing field, and Google, well, they cemented their presence in the rapidly expanding mobile world.
But it wasn't just about the phones themselves, was it?
No.
It was about the data.
Exactly.
Right.
Every time someone uses an Android phone, they're generating a treasure trove of information.
Right.
What apps they use, websites they visit, even their location. It all gets fed back into the Google ecosystem.
And that data becomes incredibly valuable, not just for targeted advertising, but for improving their other products and services.
Precisely. It's a cycle of data-driven innovation. But let's shift gears for a moment.
And talk about another Google product that completely revolutionized how we communicate. Gmail.
Gmail, okay.
Remember when a free email account came with a measly megabytes of storage?
Oh, don't remind me.
Yeah.
I felt like I was constantly deleting emails to make room for more.
Right.
And then Gmail bursts onto the scene in 2004, offering a then unthinkable, a full gigabyte of storage for free.
It was unheard of at the time. People were floored.
Oh, yeah.
But it wasn't just the storage space. Gmail introduced features we now take for granted, like threaded conversations, lightning-fast search within your inbox, and a clean, intuitive design.
Suddenly, email wasn't this clunky chore.
Right.
It was almost enjoyable.
Almost. But what's truly remarkable is how seamlessly Gmail integrates with Google's other services.
Right.
Calendar, Drive, Docs, it's all interconnected.
Yeah, true.
They were building a digital ecosystem before most of us even knew what that meant.
And let's not forget the undo send button.
Oh, yeah.
A feature that has saved countless people from social blunders and accidental reply alls.
So many.
I know I've been saved by that more times than I'd like to admit.
Right?
But let's move from the digital realm to something a bit more tangible. Self-driving cars.
Okay.
Google's Waymo project still feels futuristic, even today.
It does, doesn't it? The idea of cars navigating our streets without human intervention seemed like science fiction just a few years ago.
It really did.
But Google has been quietly working on Waymo for over a decade, and the progress they've made is astounding.
They're already operating driverless taxi services in several cities, right?
They are.
Have you ever ridden in one?
I haven't had the chance yet, but I've heard it's a surreal experience. Yeah.
You're literally sitting back, watching the world go by, while the car does all the work.
Wow.
Of course, safety is paramount with any self-driving technology.
And that's where Google's expertise in data analysis and machine learning really shines.
It's true.
They've been feeding their algorithms massive amounts of data.
Right.
Real-world driving scenarios, traffic patterns, even pedestrian behavior to create a system that's constantly learning and adapting.
It's a fascinating example of how Google is leveraging its strengths in data analysis to push the boundaries of what's possible.
It's true.
But self-driving cars are just one piece of the puzzle.
Okay.
They're also making significant strides in the realm of smart home technology with their Nest products. From thermostats that learn your preferences to security cameras that can recognize faces, it's clear they're aiming to make our homes as connected and data-driven as our phones.
It's all part of their vision for a future where technology anticipates our needs and seamlessly integrates into every aspect of our lives.
Which brings up some interesting, if slightly unnerving, questions.
Okay.
Like, how comfortable are we with giving Google, or any tech company for that matter, that level of access and control over our homes, our data, our lives?
It's a valid concern.
Yeah.
And it's a conversation we need to be having as these technologies become more sophisticated and pervasive.
It's true.
But let's not forget that Google's immense success, their ability to pour resources into these ambitious projects, is largely due to their mastery of a very specific field.
Right.
Online advertising.
Oh, yes. We can't escape Google's bread and butter, can we?
Right.
They are, at their core, an advertising company. But what's fascinating is how their dominance in search laid the foundation for their advertising empire.
It's all connected.
Yeah.
Think about it. Google search isn't just about providing you with a list of websites.
Right.
It's about understanding your intent, your interests, your needs.
Right.
And that understanding is incredibly valuable to advertisers.
It's like they're reading our minds.
Right.
But instead of thoughts, they're seeing search terms and click-through rates.
In a way, yes. And that's where things get a little ethically murky.
Okay.
Because when a company knows that much about our online behavior,
Right.
it raises serious questions about privacy, data security, and the potential for manipulation.
We touched on this earlier with the lawsuits over private browsing and data tracking. But it's a recurring theme with Google, isn't it? The tension between innovation and the potential downsides of their data-driven approach.
Absolutely. And it's something we need to be mindful of as we delve deeper into their world.
It's a tightrope walk, for sure. And speaking of balancing acts, let's talk about Google's corporate culture.
Okay.
Remember those early days?
Yeah.
The goat lawnmowers, the "don't be evil" motto?
Right.
It all seemed so idealistic, almost utopian.
They were crafting an image of themselves as the rebels, the disruptors, the ones who are going to change the world for the better. And to be fair, there was a genuine sense of excitement and possibility in those early years. The perks, the open workspaces, the encouragement to think outside the box, it was all designed to attract the brightest minds and foster a culture of innovation.
And it worked. Google became synonymous with a certain kind of workplace, one where employees were valued, empowered, and encouraged to pursue their passions.
Right.
But as we've seen, that image has become increasingly complicated over the years.
Indeed. The lawsuits and allegations we discussed earlier, particularly those concerning gender discrimination and attempts to stifle unionization efforts, paint a different picture.
Yeah.
They reveal a tension between the idealized version of Google's culture and the realities faced by many employees.
It's like two sides of the same coin.
Right.
On one side, you have this company that wants to do good, to push the boundaries of technology for the betterment of humanity. But on the other side, you have a corporation that's also beholden to its shareholders. Its bottom line, its own relentless pursuit of growth.
It's a classic dilemma and one that Google hasn't always navigated gracefully.
Right.
And as they've grown larger, more powerful, those internal tensions have spilled out into the public sphere.
Right.
The ideological echo chamber memo from 2017 is a prime example.
Right. The memo, written by a Google engineer who argued that the underrepresentation of women in tech was due to biological differences, not just discrimination.
Exactly. That memo ignited a firestorm of controversy, forcing Google to confront difficult questions about diversity, free speech, and the limits of what's acceptable within their walls.
And it highlighted a growing trend. Google employees, once content to code and innovate within the confines of the Googleplex, were becoming increasingly vocal about their ethical concerns.
Right. We saw it again with the protests over Project Maven, Google's involvement in developing AI technology for military drones. Thousands of employees signed petitions, some even resigned in protest, arguing that the project directly contradicted Google's "don't be evil" mantra.
It seems Google's own employees are holding their feet to the fire, demanding that the company live up to its stated values.
And that's a powerful force for change even within a corporation as formidable as Google.
Right.
It suggests that the future of Google's culture may not be determined solely by executives in Silicon Valley, but by the collective conscience of its workforce.
It's a fascinating dynamic. But as we reach the end of our deep dive, the question remains, what does the future hold for Google? Can this company born from a misspelled word and a garage-based dream continue to shape the world as we know it?
That's the billion-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
They have the resources, the talent, and the ambition to tackle some of the world's most pressing challenges, from climate change to healthcare to the future of artificial intelligence.
Right.
But they also face mounting scrutiny, not just for their business practices, but for the very nature of the technologies they're creating.
The privacy concerns, the potential for algorithmic bias, the sheer power they wield over information, these are issues that won't disappear anytime soon.
Precisely. And it's up to all of us, not just those who work at Google, to be informed, to ask tough questions, and to demand accountability from the tech giants who are shaping our world.
Because ultimately, the future of Google and the impact their technologies have on our lives is not something that will be decided in a boardroom or a lab.
Right.
It's a conversation that needs to happen in our homes, our classrooms, our communities.
And hopefully this deep dive has given you, our listeners, some food for thought, some new insights, and perhaps even a renewed sense of curiosity about the company behind the search bar.
Because when it comes to Google, there's always more to discover, more to question, and more to discuss. And hey, if you ever find yourself at Google headquarters, keep an eye out for those goat lawnmowers.
Right.
They're a reminder that even tech giants can embrace a little quirkiness now and then.